ライオン神エスカノール様だ。震えるさ。
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Critic Alex, and I am a little bit late on this, but we have maintenance for the 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross update coming up tonight, and the maintenance is pretty short here. We just have details that we're getting Chapter 9 and level 80 limit break, which means you're going to be able to take your level 75 characters up to level 80. Now, I don't know, based on the JP version, what Chapter 9 entails specifically, but all I wanted to do today in this video is focus on limit breaking heroes to level 80. I know it's going to be a lot of, there's going to be a lot of questions. Who should I get to 80? And a lot of players are going to have that headache and that question lingering for a while because it's pretty expensive. It's actually a jump up in cost from 70 to 75, and it's of course more pendants. So I just wanted to cover that. I have no idea what else is in the maintenance. We'll see more detailed patch notes later tonight in just a few short hours, but I just wanted to make this video to give you guys some of the tips that I came up with, and some tips that I haven't seen anybody else talk about specifically. So let's jump into it. Limit breaking is really important, obviously, because you get your character up from level 60, which is the highest base level for UR, all the way up to now 75, which is now going to be 80. Now, unlike JP, Global has ramped heavily and very quickly from 60 to 80, way faster than JP. We actually got level, it looks like we're getting level 80 before Training Cave, if Training Cave is not in the patch notes, so that's pretty wild. Now, the way that you can remember how much it costs to limit break a character now that we will have 80 as the cap, it's essentially 50 of each of the main demon materials. 50 horns, 50 wings, and 50 ears for the Howlix. And then, of course, depending on whether they're an SSR or an SR or an R character, it'll cost, 3 SSR pendants or 10 SR pendants or 30 R pendants, and then the right color book. Now, because we're getting 80, and because the 70 to 75 cost has been all horns and ears, guess who's coming for 75 to 80? That's right, the Gray Demon. So you better start accepting. You better start accepting your Gray Demon invites. You better start praising and praying for Red Demon to drop as your deathmatch, because you're going to need 30 wings and 30 ears to get a character from 75 to 80, which is a massive cost, and it's actually a jump over the last one. So just to give you guys one more quick breakdown here, from 60 to 65 it just takes 20 horns and then the pendants in the book. From 65 to 70, to get to level 70, you need 10 more horns and 20 wings. From 70 to 75, and then of course the pendants in the books. From 70 to 75, you need another 20 horns and 20 ears from the Howlix Demon. And now the newest one we're going to be getting is going to cost 30 wings and 30 ears. So 30 for the last step to 80, which is pretty brutal, I might say. So yeah. However, you can sort of use this guide and other guides to figure out who you should be getting to level 80 first. Obviously, you want to get as many characters as possible to level 80 in the future, because more power, more box power, you want your account to be as strong as possible. Sure, but who should you prioritize? Well, I think the first thing you need to do is, especially if you're free to play and you're still trying to push an ungeared PvP to champion, if you're still not at champion for ungeared PvP, you should absolutely strongly consider getting your PvP team to level 80. So I can't really give you a definitive guide on what PvP units you should be using. There obviously are units that are much better for PvP, especially ungeared PvP, than others. But, Gowther is obviously a super popular character for gearless PvP, and geared as well. Blue King is another amazing option. Green Escanor, Red Arthur, Green Merlin, all of these characters that you use as staples on your PvP teams, but especially for free-to-plays in ungeared PvP to secure those 60 diamonds every week, you're going to want to take your characters up, because being at that disadvantage, being at 75 when your opponents are at level 80 is going to be a huge disadvantage. Some players like to keep some of their units under-leveled for bot matches, because in bot matches they'll sometimes mirror your levels. I don't really want to speak to that. I don't know if that sort of strategy is going to work long term, but yeah, I would recommend characters like King, Escanor, Gowther, obviously Red Gowther, and Blue King, Red Arthur, Green Merlin, Red Hellbrum if you run Kingbrum, if you're that toxic and that degenerate. And then one that I haven't seen a lot of people suggest is Green Gilthunder, taking him to level 80. Green Gilthunder is obviously an amazing association for Hauser, so that's one reason to take him up to level 80. You get more base stats given to Hauser. He's also a really great sub for his unique, and he's got decent buffs here. He's also good for multiple raids. He's actually great for Great Demon. He's good for others as well because of the buff, and he's also not bad for Aphrit because of the Rupture. So I think Gil Thunder is one that some people are sleeping on. Again, I wouldn't rush Gil Thunder first to level 80, but he's not going to be that far behind my main units because he brings so much value to me. Not only for PvP and for death matches, but also as an association for my farm team. And my farm team, or your farm team, would be my next suggestion for who you should get to level 80. Now, I made a video recently talking about why you don't want to invest too heavily in other farm units besides Hauser, because Blue Lilia and Blue Demon Melee are coming soon, and they will basically overtake the farming meta. But I can definitely say for sure, getting your Hauser to level 80 is not a bad option at all. Now, if you're free to play and you're very, very like stingy, if you really love to hoard, you may not even want to be taking your Hauser past 70 because he can still farm very efficiently at level 70. Obviously, the faster you can farm, the more you can get materials. So the logic is always sound, and it always makes sense to go as high as you can for farming because, again, the more you can farm and the faster you can farm, the more you're going to get in less time. So that's going to allow you to catch up to other players and to maintain your lead over other players if you're interested in that, or to just have more for future updates. But I can understand why some players don't dump as many units in, especially if they're not, or like dump as many resources into their units, their farming units, especially if you're not doing overnight farming. But that is something to consider. If you do overnight farm a lot, Hauser is a great option for level 80. Other than Hauser, I really wouldn't recommend a lot of other farming units specifically for level 80. Hauser is great because he also doubles as a decent unit. Actually a great unit for geared PvP, especially if you're doing like a rush comp, or if you're doing a mono red comp, or if you're doing like a cleave comp. He has a lot of opportunities there to double down on your value. Another option I was going to say to get to level 80, again, this is a little bit more expensive. You're not going to want to spend your first resources on Blue Gila, but Blue Gila is amazing farmer for red books, which is a primary source of a lot of people's gold when there's the half off on Soul Grizz, and she's also an association for Jericho, so she has double value there, and she's also valuable for something else that we're going to talk about in a second that I think is important to sort of maybe consider preparing for. And then as far as the rest of your associations go, so that covers like PvP teams and farm teams. The rest of your associations, really the two key ones to maybe consider getting to level 80. Again, it depends on your roster, but Red Slater, he's an SR character, so you're not going to use SSR pendants, but getting him to level 80 is nice. He's decent for PvP in the meta still, but he's also an excellent association for Gother and other characters. He's not a combat class association, so he's not going to give you a combined attack, but he's a solid one, and you can get his ult to level 6 quite easily, and he shares cosmetics with Blue Slater, so it's not that difficult to pump up his base stats to give your associated characters more base stats when he's in association for like Arthur or something like that. And then the last one I had here was Blue Meliodas, and of course he is just an association for a lot of characters. Again, not going to be at the top of my priority list, maybe down in the third tier of my priorities, but the extra base stats that you get from the level 75, well, he's only 65 right now, but from the level 75 to 80 Awakening will help buff up like all of your Liz Hawks because they're great associations, and then a bunch of other characters. All of the Slime Collab characters, I believe, have an association with, maybe just Rimuru has the association with Meliodas. But yeah, he's a very popular association in the game, so he's always going to have that going for him. And then for the Knighthood boss, basically it's just Jericho. Now, I'm kind of a hoarder, even though I'm a whale, so I've kept my Jericho at 70. She does her job. I can get like almost 2,000 points with a level 70 Jericho, so I don't see the need, unless I'm pushing for like top 10 or top 3 for Knighthoods, to really get her to 75. But if you love Knighthood boss, and if you're trying to impress people, or if you're trying to just go for your own personal best, then of course getting Jericho to 80 is always going to have more value. Keep in mind the Knighthood boss will change eventually, and then the Jericho one-shot strategy may not be as efficient or as meta as before. I don't know all the details on that, but I know that the boss does eventually change and rotate between other types of bosses. And then, of course, different attributes, different advantages, etc. The last type of characters that you should consider getting to level 80 with the new limit break change are characters for final boss Gother. Now, this is, again, pretty, in the future prep. I don't know when final boss Gother is going to come out. Maybe I'm clairvoyant and final boss Gother is about to be announced. Maybe final boss Gother is going to come in, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but it's not that far off. It's not like months away. For final boss Gother, it mimics the attribute of the red Gother, but it mimics the stats, or not the stats, the skills of both red and green Gother. So you've got the like single target attack, but you've also got the attack seals and the invasion arrow and the AoE ult Gowther. Now for this Gowther, because its final boss Gowther is red, you're going to want to bring blue units. I looked it up, and some of the most effective, some of the best units that we have right now on global, besides blue Lilia, for final boss Gowther are Blue King and Blue Lizhawk. Blue Lizhawk is actually very good for final boss Gowther, so you could consider getting her up to level 80. She has a lot of other values in this game. She still has some value in PvP, deep death matches, stuff like that. So she's definitely not a bad choice. I also mentioned before not Blue Jericho, but Blue Gila. She can also be used for final boss Gowther because of her AoE Ignite and her AoE ult and the heals to sustain, to get rid of the ads along with final boss Gowther. You also have Blue Big Diane, Dion. Now I know some people run her in PvP, so that could be another option for why you want to get her to level 80, because of that disgusting full swing impact and the damage that it does. But yeah, she's another good option for her AoE, for her rupture AoE, for final boss Gowther, so that's another option for you. And then Blue Weinhardt, I know I sort of crapped on him because Demon Melee is coming out, but he's not bad for final boss Gowther. And then Blue Slater is the last one for final boss Gowther because of the single target damage, and then because of the remove stance, because the ads for final boss Gowther like to taunt, or they do taunt every 2 turns, so that does help with that. So those are my tips. Those are all my tips that I have for you guys regarding characters that you should get to level 80. Obviously, your personal preference is what matters the most, so you don't have to take my guide as the absolute thing that you should be doing. You should base it on who you have and who you use the most. But I do think prioritizing PvP because of the diamonds, and then secondarily the PvP coins in geared PvP, and then your farm team is probably the best option for you long term to get the most value out of those level 75 to 80 jumps that you're going to do for those characters. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think of the guide and the list of characters. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.